YouTube comments from a video titled, Why Medieval Bread Was a Superfood While Your Modern Bread Makes You Sick. Part 5.
Adela Mariusz wrote,
Oh God, yes. Bloating, fatigue, and horrible wind. The bread I ate as a kid didn't do this. Plus, we ate beer meal bannocks. They were so delicious.
At Morgam Gary 921 wrote,
A moderately disingenuous evaluation on the medieval peasant. Their life expectancy was only about 50 if they survived childhood. With mortality rates figured in, only 35-ish. So while people continue to label modern food as bad, we continue to feed more and more people due to agricultural industrialization, while having life expectancy productive life as well go up.
At Ricardo Oliveira, HN6RL wrote,
There is a lot of naturalistic fallacy in this video. I understand what you're trying to say, but most of the foods we have on our shelves are actually very safe, and many are even healthy. What truly makes us sick is overeating, lack of dietary variety, and lack of exercise. Bread included.
Paradox Coffee wrote,
Why medieval bread was a superfood while your modern bread makes you sick very much only US bread. Never seen what we call warm bakers in the EU, I take it.
At the Boomtown 4 wrote,
You don't have to buy Wonder Bread, just like you don't have to eat at Taco Bell. There are plenty of healthy options. It's not a conspiracy. It's capitalism and freedom. The reason we're all in agreement with this video is because we're all privy to the knowledge that ultra-processed bread sucks. Also, in the Middle Ages, the average lifespan of males born in landholding families in England was 31 PO in T3 years, and the biggest danger was surviving childhood. Once children reached the age of 10, their life expectancy was 32 PO in T2 years, and for those who survived 25, remaining life expectancy was 23 PO in T3 years. So everyone stop feeling victimized and have some optimism, cheerfulness, and lose the resentment. You'll be healthier for it.
At Gerald GS2VH wrote,
Modern bread is a concoction of chemicals designed to keep it as fresh as possible while stripping it of any nutritional value. Bake your own bread from scratch and notice what a difference real bread tastes like. I cannot eat white bread anymore and suffer from eating wheat bread as well. Now I eat no bread that I don't bake myself.
At Fargodom 175 wrote,
Bro casually skips over how flour used to be really expensive, so they would mix things like chalk in the flour to make cheaper bread, not to mention how gross a medieval kitchen actually was. Their bread was not better, it just had different drawbacks.
At Santos Mad 9356 wrote,
Capitalism fucks everything it touches. Even the fruits are bigger but are ripe unmature, so they taste like it, but with worse nutritional values. Cars, houses, works. Every little thing, even our sociability, was killed because its roots are the profit. Human relations, feelings, will, and even pain, even disease and treatment. Every single aspect of life is based on the capability of profit. We are not human anymore, so why do we need to feed like humans?
Snarkaliv wrote,
Modern bread is an industrial miracle. My local bread plant pumps out thousands of loaves every morning, feeds plenty of people, but the tortillerias are the real lifeblood of the city here. Medieval bread was good for its time, but it did not keep long. It was hard on the teeth. It wasn't very delicious, and it wasn't very convenient. In the US especially, you have an entire spectrum of breads, ranging from organic hand-milled artisanal loaves that will spoil in a day to sliced bread with preservatives ranging from exotic to just honey that can last for 2 weeks. We don't actually eat a lot of bread anymore. It's still somewhat a staple, but it's not a main dish because we don't work fields. Modern transportation and procedures allow people access to fresh vegetables and meats and almost anything else, just about all the time. Most people gravitate towards what's cheap, what's easy, or what's healthy. It's not perfect, and frankly, society's problem is too many calories at this point, but the case study seems a little biased. I really feel like you should list your sources in the description at a bare minimum, especially when you're alluding to studies like the one stated in Italy. If we're going by feels, most of us don't die at 40 to 65 anymore or starve to death by the tens of thousands in Western nations, which seems like more of a win.
At Sinastral 8142 wrote,
Excellent video, thank you. Liked and subscribed. It is exactly the problem with modern food articles. No nutritional value. And the naysayers who think you'll go back to junk, they couldn't be more wrong. Once you truly transfer your diet to healthy, nutritional food, even your body will crave only that. Lifelong conditioning is your only enemy, but with some willpower that can be easily overcome.
At ucruz_ wrote,
I have a feeling this is a very American problem, because the bread here in Brazil is actual bread, and I would bet in all of South America even. The shithole that is Venezuela.
Consultant Cell wrote,
I mean, there's something called survivor's bias. I'm not saying I know anything on this subject because I don't, but I'm pretty sure if 70% of the food is gluten, anyone who had gluten intolerance died or something. I dunno. Both sides could also be true.
A John ZZ6FZ wrote,
You make some great points, but you have overly narrativized the reasoning. You're using a white bread style of reasoning that is poisoning your mind. All sugar, no substance. It's absolutely true that modern industrial food is making us sick, but the reason we have this system isn't entirely greed, though greed definitely accelerated the transition. The rate of global famine is as low as it's ever been. That trend tracks and is entirely due to industrial food processes. Yes, it's making us feel worse on the daily, and in some cases is making individuals very, very sick, but it's also keeping much of the world from starving to death within the year. The biggest question is how we do better going forward, and I think the ancient grains are a big part of the solution. Global population is peaking and beginning to reverse in this century. While that creates a whole host of financial problems, it's absolutely necessary from a sustainability perspective. We are going to be capable of large-scale mechanical weed suppression/control very, very soon. We have access to food storage techniques our ancestors didn't, refrigeration and vacuum sealing. We need those techniques to have a scalable organic food supply. It's extremely important that we revive the genetic diversity of the grains we grow, and that means planting the ancient grains again. Oversimplifying problems results in mistakes in correction. We need to get to a sustainable and healthful food supply, and unfortunately, the answer isn't going to be artisanal methods that can't scale or higher income individuals paying 10x for organic foods.
At Lostman1 Full wrote,
How can wheat develop disease? It did not until modern man started screwing with it. Wheat was around for thousands of years with no disease. These history stories about bread is a lie. We are being had. Any diseases on this earth are man-made, period.
At Akram Saheb wrote,
Such a superfood that people average lifespan was 40 years at best. But you complain about modernity. With our medicine, vaccination, and our food processes, we live to about 80. But somehow you think we are sicker, just a bunch of bull.
At Moira Goldsmith 7052 wrote,
Good info, but also prior to harvesting, the crops are sprayed with glyphosate to aid desiccation, and then may be stored in silos far too long, causing mold formation, rodent problems, etc. to add to the difficulties. I am thrilled folk are waking up to this. Also, the high-speed Chorley wood beethead making process that revolutionized the baking industry 50 years ago and misses out the bulk fermentation time. Consequently, the flour proteins are not denatured as they would be within a traditional fermentation process.
at Dubilou 5439 wrote,
How exactly does this compare bread with medieval bread? What exactly is the difference? The only real difference is that for people who actually know anything, medieval bread often contained stone, dust, and fragments that wore people's teeth down and sometimes killed people from dental infections and the like.
at Robert Bob 980 wrote,
I buy wheat berries and grind my own flour, making wonderful wheat bread. I never eat store bought or restaurant bread anymore. I tell my family and friends. But of course they don't listen. Many have high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. So they take these pills and shots from their doctors. I try my best, telling them to try better food and no sugars and wonderful teas like oolong, black and green teas for couple months. Watch what happens. But they don't. Thank you for this video. I'll pass it on. Hopefully they will watch and learn / and stop injecting themselves and tossing these pills down their throats. Keep up the great work.
at Jesus_Reigns wrote,
Okay, but can you please talk in your real voice instead of using this AI? Like I can't really take it fully seriously when at 7:15 it starts saying evil bread. Also, the monotonous voice and lack of intonation just makes it so boring to listen to. Like, I really like all of this information, but I don't like the fakeness that makes this sound like a cheap 5-minute craft video. Just talk to me, from person to person, like you're a real human being telling me important information from your first-hand research and personal experiences. Not a robot spewing a script.
at Gorge George wrote,
Hard to find the name of the heritage wheats in your video. I can Emma spelt. I make my own bread by combining whole wheat with oats, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds that I grind up. I like to add some honey, olive oil, and a fair bit of rosemary for flavor. Now, I'll replace my whole wheat flour with one of the above 3 flours.
at Nikinatolite wrote,
I have developed a lot of digestive issues over the last 5 years, and I definitely noticed the difference when I cut out ultra-processed foods. It's crazy how many people refuse to acknowledge how their food is killing them because they are addicted by design. I still struggle with wanting soda even though I can feel my insides ache when I drink it. That's science. Food science.
Ashive 1337 wrote,
Congratulations with misinforming thousands upon thousands of people. Talking about chromosomes casually in a bread video is about the dumbest thing I've heard in a long while. There's butterflies with over 450 chromosomes. Are they now more complex than humans as we only have 46? Herpa-derp. It's not how that works, buddy. Your whole video is a bunch of undocumented misinformation. If you spread misinformation on this scale, then you're committing a crime against humanity. You should be laid to rest.
at Cobble 4570 wrote,
Thanks for the video. It is true. We all know it. But can you please write your own scripts? The AI's foul smell is perceptible through the screen. Nobody likes the fakeness and soullessness of an AI script. I think this is your real voice, but I know you didn't write this script, and you wouldn't even know how to most likely, because you aren't educated on this topic. If I am wrong, excuse me and don't take it. My point is that everybody likes humans. Humans like to listen to other educated, smart humans, teach them knowledge that is going to help them in life. But AI does the opposite. It makes you dumber. So please make your own scripts, written by you, or even some other person who knows what he's talking about. Not by some faulty, dumb robot. Thank you, man, and keep up the good work. Your idea for this channel is awesome. I'm just giving you tips how to improve. Take care.
At Lucian3327 wrote,
Every once in a while, I like to watch something like this to remind me of what is wrong with the food I eat every day. Thank you for making this.
At Lindsay Medley 6644 wrote,
Great video, thanks for the info which I'll share with friends and family. He went keto a few years ago, so I rarely eat wheat now, but occasionally will have it. I'd like to give this a go and make my own heritage bread.
At BuzzMoves 365 wrote,
Correction. Bread was a survival food for too many people living in a small place, and is the cause of smaller, weaker people. Animal products are the true superfoods.
At A Cosmic Muse wrote,
This year I started milling my own berries. I make everything now either fresh milled flour. My family is healthy, our grocery bills cut in half, we can live on the Ezekiel bread. Red winter berries, red kidney beans, great northern white beans, spelt, millet, lentils, honey, oil, flaxseed, yeast. Most magical bread in the planet.
At Jabberwockitty8901 wrote,
This is no just a post-WW2 thing. Commercially produced yeast became popular from the mid-1800s. Industrial-scale bakeries from the early 1900s. This has been a long process and went further in some countries than others. The big change post-WW2 is artificial fertilizers, pesticides and hybridized wheat varieties aimed at easy production and high yields.
At Jabberwockitty8901 wrote,
Roller mills have been in use since the second half of the 19th century. I don't see any justification for claiming they heat the flour up more than stones. Friction is friction. Also, the flour stays in the millstones longer than it does in roller mills. Didn't readily find any information to support that theory either.
At Eclectics wrote,
I had no idea about real bread until I left the US 10 years ago and came to Spain. I no longer buy loaves at the grocery store, only at the bakery, where bread is made now as it has been through the ages.
At NWRC5U wrote,
No, I don't. I eat rye sourdough from my local co-op. Also steal cut oat porridge for breakfast, cooled down, put it in Adam's PB jar, and put in the fridge to make the starch in it resistant and microbiome supporting.
At Soapbox 187 wrote,
I buy wheat berries and grind my own wheat with a countertop stone mill. The taste is phenomenal. The one thing you'll have to get used to is the texture, but once you realize that the texture of fresh ground flour with the wheat bran in it is the way it's supposed to be eaten. I buy bread from time to time, but only ever sourdoughs and never white.
At Just Me VZ3WD wrote,
No, our modern bread from bakeries is not killing us. If you buy bread from supermarkets, though, that's another story. But that is not equivalent with modern bread.
At Bebop9808 wrote,
Get it right before it's too late, folks. Let diabetes take control, and you'll find yourself on the carnivore diet for the rest of your life. Not that carnivore is a bad thing, just the opposite. It will return your health, no doubt about it, but any kind of sugar in any form is off the table. Enjoying that yummy bread becomes a thing of the past. Take care of yourself, people. Promise you, no one else is going to. They only want your money. Dr. Zaha. That's a joke.
And Markham 4201 wrote,
I have come to realize, after doing the weekly shop, that most products in our supermarkets are not real food. Sugar in some form or another, and processed oils are in everything, and bread is particularly corrupted. I only buy sourdough bread, but not supermarket own brand, and always checking ingredients. Gluten-free products are particularly bad for processed ingredients. My wife is celiac, which is ironic. Always try cook everything from raw ingredients. Most farm shops around me sell expensive bread, which is no better than supermarket bread, obviously bought in.
At No Control 556 wrote,
I'm not saying it's the best either, but when you buy fresh baked bread at a supermarket, it's only soft for a day or two, where the stuff on the normal shelf stays soft until it starts growing mold. Just makes you think what they have to do to make it last that long.
At Fire_Prophet wrote,
This video is mainly a mix of survivorship bias and partially an American problem. Most of what he says in this video is either misrepresentation or misunderstanding of data, or much less applicable to the rest of the developed world outside of the US.
At Real Goose H2Q wrote,
How many AI video and images were used here? Some are kind of funny. I agree with 90% of this video. Some things that stand out and I still have questions about. 1. If the bread is rising due to the yeast, either 24 hours or 3 hours, then fermentation is happening. Just using a different yeast wouldn't make a significant difference. So the points tied to the longer fermentation time versus shorter commercial processes still using yeast are undermined. 2. If the roller milling didn't take the extra step to separate the parts of the wheat, would it still be a bad process? Seems like the mill itself isn't the issue, but rather the step of separating parts and creating a non-whole grain flour. Seems like the biggest points of contention are the wheat varieties, how they are milled, and the crop treatment. I'd add that our soil is depleted compared to the medieval farmland. Magnesium specifically is grossly missing.
At Leslie Nelson 7708 wrote,
I realized how bad Shopbot was about 30 years ago. It has very little nutritional value. I have been making my own bread with locally produced wholemeal flour since around 1992. Apart from factory-produced bread being an ultra-processed food, it doesn't even taste nice.
At Jabberwockitty 8901 wrote,
It's known the ancient Egyptians who ate a lot of bread did get diabetes and heart disease. Too much carbs is too much carbs, no matter how much more easily tolerated the gluten is.
A Stitch Mini Bull Terrier wrote,
This isn't necessarily true. I ate clean bread with 3 ingredients: wheat, salt, yeast, and still had issues. It must be the wheat itself here in North America. Poison.
The Dick Staple wrote,
Knowledge is a curse. The more you find out, the more you realize how fucking rancid the modern world is, and how much we as a species have screwed ourselves over in the name of short-term profit.
A Cyberpubco wrote,
It's a trade-off: commodities or health. If you want fast, cheap bread, keep buying, and if you want healthy bread, make it. The reason why a lot of this is happening to begin with is because of the logistics of transport and agriculture that make our bread cheap. Otherwise, it'll be more expensive, and the consumer itself is not happy with expensive stuff, even though it makes them healthier. Make your own bread if you can otherwise don't, and keep enjoying the cheap commodities society offers.
At Oneofakin 5668 wrote,
100% all the Gmocker AP they add to bread today makes you sick. SOY product is in all bread in bad for health. I will no longer eat store-bought bread.
A Jensen 999 wrote,
Another point I would like to mention. More and more people are far less active than when our grandparents were. Modern technology has slowly and severely stripped us of physical activity within the past 50 years.
and Bizarri wrote,
Fantastic reporting with science and research to back it up. Reddit might have issues with you telling the truth. You've earned a subscriber. Great job to everyone on the team for a well thought out, perfectly edited, and interesting video.
At Leona U7N wrote,
Wijai A2D sur le pain corn Jimmy questionnaire comment les catholiques devant ruse saint gina au pain puis jai découvert quils mangeant du pain au millet. Les piorta qui sont beaucoup plus nutritifs.
At Zajamaji wrote,
Living in Poland, our daily bread is something called in USA artisan bread. For us, is a normal bread. Sourdough, leavening agent, salt, and that's all. Of course it's changing, but we preferred this than white bread. I actually making myself leavening agent, 'cause it's easy.
At Anthony Story 2953 wrote,
I can remember years ago, the cry of the day was for real ale. How about real bread? Made from natural healthy ingredients instead of improvers and other money-making rubbish.
At Rander Masonry LLC wrote,
Yeah. Well.
Have less and less and less. Good for me, good for them. Not good for you. Not good for a lot of you. Everyone suffers, but you'll live or you'll die. Did you die?
At Blayaf 15 wrote,
Those lads living outside York in the 14th century weren't exactly thriving. Whatever they were doing, they doing it over much shorter lifespan than us. The Chorleywood process fed many people after the war. Unfortunately, industrial corporate interests continued to market that crap to us in the UK for decades after it was appropriate to do so. The last 10 years has seen a resurgence of craft product in all sorts of sectors. Basically, running things only for the sake of profit motive ruins them. Bread is a great example. Unfortunately, it's endemic, because there's always one person who doesn't understand what a sufficiency is.
At Parlor 3115 wrote,
People just love to blame all their problems on one thing. TF, how do you know this miracle bread will not trigger gluten sensitivity and make you obese? What medical trial did you enact to come to this conclusion of its?
At Happy Face 6 or 7 wrote,
Seriously, they didn't have the luxury or knowledge to complain about bread making them sick. They either died too quick to realize anything, and doctors were more like religious leaders, praying for healing rather than solving any sicknesses.
At Bobby Go Fast wrote,
Oh yeah, that super bread fueled them to a ripe old age of 35 on average. And today's offerings is any kind of bread you want, from the crudest to the most disgustingly refined. Minus the ergot poisoning that could send you on a 12-hour trip that would make everyone think you were possessed by a demon, or worse, kill you. So this is all just BS. No one is forcing you to eat highly processed bread, and medieval bread had its own health issues.
A G Blockbreaker wrote,
As a German, I thankfully never had to think about the quality of our bread. It's the one thing you can still rely on in this country as long as you get it from a local bakery.
As Stacy's 173 wrote,
I went to a nutritionist who told me the bread we eat now, even the ancient grain bread I was eating, holds 3 times the amount of water in the body. So if you have inflammation, it makes symptoms worse, especially in the legs. Reduce the consumption of the flour products we have now and relieve the inflammation symptoms in your body. I appreciate this video because once upon a time we used to pray for our daily bread. Now it's just a filler and will not sustain us nutritionally.
At Roof and Emil for us all wrote,
Lots of interesting information here, and some misleading statements as well. Be realistic. You can't afford medieval wheat at $20/pound. You can get closer to good much more simply. Bread is flour and water and your sourdough starter. The salt is optional. Get some clean water and red wheat flour. Create a sourdough starter. Keep it in the fridge, stir it daily, feed it, and make bread with it. Don't use yeast in baking. If man made it, don't eat it.
At Coolshaw 1662 wrote,
I mean, these are the joys of overpopulation. Pesticides, cows' dung, tire runoffs, chemical runoffs from roads, etc. The vitamins are there as all of the previous chemicals I mentioned have destroyed the soil health. Like, how many people can you feed with pure wheat with this many mouths to feed?
At Stevenern 6640 wrote,
Interesting. I'm one of the 100th of millions that don't have issues with modern bread, but I do recognize millions others do. To lie the rise in diabetes at the feet of bread, however, is simplistic. Bread is just a piece of the issue that includes high sugar consumption, both raw and in processed food, lifestyle and partially survivor bias.
At Christopher_TTT wrote,
Processed food is straight up poisoning us. This time of year is peak season at my job, and I went to Dunkin' Donuts to grab a bagel twist and donut with sprinkles, and I've been deathly ill. And after watching this, I wonder if the two are related.
At Jack and Blaze 5956 wrote,
It took me months to figure out why I suddenly developed crippling arthritis about 2 years ago. After fasting 36 hours, I added food items back into my diet one at a time. I found out that anything made out of wheat now triggers the most painful arthritis imaginable. The kind of pain that makes you seriously consider putting a bullet through your head just to get some relief, because no amount of painkillers work. And I took all types of painkillers until my stomach started to bleed. I'm also allergic to morphine, so that doesn't work. But the solution is to not eat anything made from wheat. Not one cracker, not one piece of bread, no meatloaf, no beer, no whiskey, not one cookie, no pie, no dumplings. Even most cornbread has wheat in it now. Wheat is a cheap food filler material now, like sawdust used to be. As long as I can avoid all wheat, I have zero arthritis pain. But any piece of bread or 5 croutons will make it so that I can't even walk the next day.
Tamariad wrote,
Painting the past as heaven and today as hell is very misleading. 1. No diabetics, no gluten sensitivity, no inflammatory bowel disease. How do you know? No one knew what these are back then, so there are no statistics. 2 humans in the era worked really hard physically, so they burned a lot of calories. Today, people eat a lot of calories and sit on a chair most of the day. 3. Getting tired, brain fog, etc. after eating is normal. Your body focuses its attention and energy on breaking down the food and moving it. You get that after eating potatoes, for example. So what's your explanation there? 4, you said old milling techniques didn't heat up the flour, thus preserving oils. What about after baking it in the oven? Overall, really well put video with great editing. I enjoyed watching it. To everyone who reads this, try to view anything you see with critical thinking. If someone says they had it better in the past, automatically become suspicious. In that time, 50% of kids never made it to adulthood. A minor infection killed you. Most people were malnourished and hungry most of the time. Violence was abundant, and dead bodies were as numerous as flowers. Great times indeed.
A shady character wrote,
Okay, but doesn't stone ground flour consist of tiny bits of the mill stone which wear down your teeth? I know it is slow and takes years and years, but is it still something to be concerned about?
At 02838 wrote,
The foods that create the most allergies are also the ones that have been denatured the most. Raw milk has become a white foreign liquid that creates disease. Likewise with bread, eggs, and a whole lot more. Interestingly, the moment we reintroduce the original, real foods back into our diet, diseases spontaneously disappear.
At Dayrush 5721 wrote,
Seriously, you overstate the case. It's still a strong case, but your exaggerated sense of drama is really off-putting. If you let the facts just speak, your presentation would be much more compelling.
At user RK3UB8QL5D wrote,
This content will make unscrupulous bread company who always thinking up profits hates you. The power of capitalism are so strong they can even bought the one in White House, and what makes elites capitalists so dangerous is because they are united and shares their resources in making the masses ignorant.
At Ericollar 5503 wrote,
So are you saying oats, barley, quinoa, and rice are free of genetic modification and glyphosate you mentioned were problems with wheat? I can't say I buy that.
At Jimbio 327 wrote,
I no longer trust anything one can buy at the supermarket. Became carnivore 6 years ago. Never felt better since my 20s. Now at 70, I don't know how long I'm going to live, but I can already see a major difference when I compare my health with others of my age.
At Rigorm 42 wrote,
Yes, just come to Eastern EU. We have same recent bread, or a lot of times we bake them at home. You can do it. Why don't? There is a magical thing called internet where you can find a recipe. And also cheaper.
At Ivory Lanka wrote,
This channel is very sus. It kind of jumble the info around. Like they say that chemical was put in yoga mats. It's completely irrelevant here. Also, most of lectins get destroyed in cooking. I'm not saying these bread are good. In fact, I make my own. But these citing and conclusion this make is very suspicious.
At Halder CZ wrote,
Should be said, though, that in the EU it is forbidden to bleach the flour. So if you buy it in the EU, should be fine from this point of view.
At Lazy_Lefty wrote,
This video is just whining about modern bread. It only lists the pros of medieval bread and none of the cons, like grinding your teeth into nubs from the rock chips left in the flour from milling, and omits the reasons why modern bread is the way it is and the sum of the pros of the process.
At Enthisnonsense 7202 wrote,
That's just a lie. In medieval times, everything you could think of was added to bread in order to produce it a bit cheaper. Things like ash, chalk, clay, crushed bones, and much more. As long as you don't touch American produce, all of today's bread is a superfood compared to the medieval fraud bread that did kill.
Zotox wrote,
Not every bread on a shelf has so many useless ingredients. In North America, most of them do, and they're not breads but toasts. Either go to a real bakery or visit Europe, and you'll see what real bread is like too. Comparison with yoga mats are highly misleading and alarmist, same as calling water chemical. Just because something helps with yoga mats or anything else within the household doesn't mean it is not safe for consumption. 3 number of chromosomes is useless and again is highly misleading and alarmist information. 4 the incidence of celiac disease can be higher also because of better informed society and better detection method. It doesn't necessarily have to do with any changes in the wheat composition. Correlation does not mean causation. 5 problem with obesity and diabetes. It is again useless to blame bread or not blame bread. If people eat sweet American toasts and chug Coke over it, or even have PB&J as a spread, then we can't wonder about the diabetes. However, sedentary lifestyle is the biggest difference compared to those farmers that were eating 70% of their calories in bread. 6 basing your argument on something like medieval peasant didn't suffer from celiac or other is absolute nonsense. Not only we don't have any reliable information about this, there was basically no detection. These people would not be able to afford a doctor, and even if they did, they would give some BS medicine. People lived 40 on average, children mortality was high. We could therefore actually expect that the people who had these problems died much earlier and were not detected at all. All in all, we have much better understanding of nutrition now. If you're choosing bread, eat it sporadically and choose either rye, whole wheat variant or even bread like pumpernickel. Don't take the cheapest BS. Choose something that has higher quality or even made by a smaller bakery.
At Fildercomiskadip 4481 wrote,
Bread back then wasn't a superfood either. Nutritional deficiencies were rampant. People were shorter compared to previous hunter-gatherer and pastoralist groups, had smaller jaws, narrower skulls, lower bone density, smaller cranial size in total, also meaning smaller brains and so forth.
At Daniel Scommer 7211 wrote,
Bullshit. Half of all people were dead by 30, and you have no idea how they felt. The reason people are sick isn't because of the bread. It's because 90% do not get enough fruits and veg. That we eat too much sugar. People living on 30 loaves of bread a day were not more healthy. For fuck's sakes.
Fritz Adler wrote,
Not sure about the rest of the video, but the part about farmers spraying the wheat with glyphosate to dry it out is false. However, it is sprayed in the early stages of growth to reduce competition from weeds. Something everyone should know is that AI will commonly hallucinate facts, and you will only be able to spot the lies if you already know a thing or two about the subject.
At John's Height 4656 wrote,
Bro, I really don't think medieval bread was a superfood. The peasants were not exactly a picture of perfect health. LLL. There's a reason they are known for being undernourished and dirty and sick. I get that we have problems today, but I'd rather have the problems of today than the problems of 1445 AD. At least I'm not going to die of plague, get burned at the stake as a witch, get forcibly converted to Catholicism, or get my head chopped off for being wealthy. Or get leeches, or mercury prescribed as a medical treatment. Yes, doctors used to prescribe mercury to patients, and yes, it killed them. The medieval age sucked. If you think otherwise, then you're living in a fantasy world. Turn off the World of Warcraft and come back down to Earth, friend.
At Shields 5881 wrote,
I agree with everything this video says, but it leaves out something important about today's society. Our population, the biggest limiting factor to a population is if you can feed it. Sadly, in order to maintain an ever-growing population, we've had to sacrifice quality for quantity. I fear we'd experience large-scale famine if we tried to go back to things like old-style wheat.
At Give Me a Name in One wrote,
Medieval bread wasn't a superfood. They often added chalk and other crap to it to adulterate it and make it whiter. And now they add plaster of Paris to bread to make white bread and adulterate it. Sometimes up to 1% in T3% in the USA, which can cause constipation and in some people, and will lead to piles in most people if consumed every day by 30 to 40.
At Danielks 555 wrote,
I bake a ton of bread. I grew up in the Palace, a region of eastern Washington where lentils and wheat both grow remarkably. You take wheat, you grind it up, you sift it, and you have a fantastic source of energy directly from the sun, and a reliable source of protein that combines with other protein sources to make sure you get all of your amino acids. Time is key. I add a friendly fungus called yeast to the wheat, and I allow bacteria from the air to do their work. The fungus and the bacteria digest and break down a lot of chemicals in the wheat flour. Autolysis is also a process that you want to do to your wheat. When you mix flour with water, the enzymes in the wheat kernel actually start breaking down some of the starches and proteins into more digestible components. Wheat is a good source of polyphenols and antioxidants, as well as B vitamins and minerals. I try to stay away from any factory-made bread because it is not good for you. They don't do anything that they should to the bread. They just mix it up and bake it.
At 23 Hadrian wrote,
Americans have been poisoning themselves with bread for about 70 years. In Europe, however, the situation is much better. Here in Poland, smaller bakeries are still alive and well, and you can get really good, fresh, chemical-free bread. You can either buy it from a supermarket, 50% cheaper, or, as many have begun, bake your own at home.
At Scrappy Babarker 5224 wrote,
Bread is a starvation food. It is an emergency food that lasts if you store it right. Nobody would choose bread over meat. Bread is only there to keep you alive till your next meal of meat.
At Ducky Orwell 9416 wrote,
For profit, not maximization of the human experience. Most childish and lowest level of incentive. Profit, marketing, money, power, while we could all just be free and healthy. I'm glad as a rebel that I do not belong to humanity. I am one of those rare ones you all did not agree with until very much later in life when your slave ass woke up. Telling people like me we're wrong for being rebels. Can you just take one look at the clown world you build and bend over to? You all are wrong. Time to wake the F up and fight for freedom.
At Drummer Monks wrote,
Thank you. This is most appreciated. I was diagnosed in 2016 with diabetes. In 2020, I wound up on the hospital for 2 weeks from diabetic ketoacidosis. In 2022, I nearly died from ketoacidosis. The doctors put me on several medications and insulin injections. Despite me following doctors' orders, my sugar levels kept rising as did the insulin injections. Thus, my husband set about to find a cure for diabetes. This led him to the keto diet with intermittent fasting. In addition, we stopped eating ultra-processed foods and began eating organic vegetables and fruits, opting for grass-fed meat sources and farm-fresh eggs. I am no longer able to eat what is sold as bread in the grocery stores, and knowing how many chemicals are in it, I don't want to.
I have been looking for ways that I can make bread from things that do not spike my blood sugars. Through keto and IF, we have gotten my fasting sugars around 110 to 130 generally, and when they spike, it spikes to the 140 to 155 range rather than the high 200 to 350 range it used to spike to. This video came on my radar at just the right time. You definitely earned my subscription, and I look forward to seeing more of your videos. Again, thank you for this most useful information.
At Valianther7577 wrote,
357. I have been trying to tell people this for years, and 99% of people literally look at me like I'm telling them that a race of Sesame Street creatures ruled ancient Egypt.
At First Originals wrote,
To all of you who like to produce this super bread yourselves, I have recently made my sourdough culture. I left the flour stays for an hour on the room, then used the dechlorinated water. Just leave the tap water stay 12 hours and chlorine goes away on a 1:1 basis. You must remove half of that every 24 hours and add 1 flour into chlorinated water. For example, if you started with 100 gr of flour and 100 gr of water, after 24 hours, remove 50 gr of the sourdough culture and add 50 gr water and 50 gr flour. Do that for 6 to 10 days, and you see how your culture grow beautifully. It is now ready to make a nice bread. If you have any question, ask me.
Kindest Hobo wrote,
While I was thinking how the hell people were eating bread all the time and know it became basically junk food, I wish heritage flour was more available.
As Raftermanx wrote,
Wheat is not essential. You cannot name one an essential carb. Unprocessed carbs are still carbs that get broken down to glucose. We also don't need fiber. Never have needed fiber, and humans are not designed to utilize it as we have no cecum.
At Chris Walker 4272 wrote,
AI may have been used, but I still learned much from this, and will look into heritage flour availability in the UK. So I appreciate this short presentation, because it's informative and mostly useful.
At Dean 4125 wrote,
This is why I switched to a high-fat carnivore diet for optimal health. 'Cause bread in the store is not healthy at all. So I just cut it out completely from my diet.
At Darthiculus 6511 wrote,
The same people telling us that seed oils are poison are now telling us whole wheat bread is a superfood because it contains healthy fats. Okay, champ, sure.
At Justin Morgan 2126 wrote,
As an expat, one thing that most UK residents don't realize is that most people go to specific shops to buy bread products, and as a result are eating real bread. The UK could solve its food problems if they went back to specific shops for specific products: the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
At Added Miller wrote,
Just for reference, the average life expectancy of a man in England in the 1300s was 30 and 33 years. But I guess it wasn't the wheat that killed them, lol.
Stan_Austin wrote,
I'm gluten intolerant. I had diarrhea for several years until I cut out bread and pasta. I also had problems with bloating, gas, and stomach pain. What a massive difference it has made. Thankfully, I'm not a full-blown celiac, unlike my sister.
At Danny Elisander wrote,
You are perfectly free to try to sell this bread. Give it a shot. If it's so much better than the other bread, you would get rich. So there are 3 possibilities. 1, you don't dare to try to sell it. 2, you hate money. Or 3, people don't want to buy your bread. You choose what you think the cause is. I bet you have never tried, and it doesn't taste that good, so it won't sell.
At Igor 369 wrote,
Okay, but then how do I tell a source I have found is selling properly milled flour? Baking own bread is one thing, but harvesting wheat and milling it another.
at Gelfskabellines wrote,
Mainly that's a USA problem. In most of EU countries, you can have the same kind of bread you described also in many supermarkets. Most of US industrial brands of bread could not sell it in Europe because it's forbidden as poison or labeled dangerous for health.
at Ferretzim 8694 wrote,
I just want to point out one thing. Where you get your supermarket bread can also play a part in what's in it. One type I've bought several times from regular store shelf has the following ingredients: whole wheat 38.2%, wheat flour, water, rapeseed oil, yeast, salt, vinegar, then the vegetable emulsifiers E400 and 72E and E471 and citric acid. It's not white and fluffy, and it's not pre-cut.
at Samrando 11-22 wrote,
The only trouble with stone milled I know of is that tiny bits of stone would wear down the teeth, which became less of an issue after metal mills. Everything else sounded accurate though.